Oops. Good evening. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Plymouth area, welcome. The League is a nonpartisan grassroots organization working to protect and expand voting rights for all at the local, state, and national levels. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the sacred land of the Wampanoag Nation. We honor the Herring Pond Wampanoag people as the original stewards of this place known as Plymouth. And we honor all Wampanoag tribes, along with the countless other indigenous people who traversed these lands for centuries before us. As we acknowledge many historical injustices, may we keep the first peoples of this land in our hearts and minds as we discuss issues affecting these valuable members of our community and their ancestral homelands today. Tonight's forum is planned and presented by dedicated volunteer members of the Voter Services Committee, including Mary Toussaint, Lisa Hamilton, Emily Tompkins, Deb Etzel, Lyle Lawrence, Susan Nilsson, Pat McCarthy, Patty Anklam, Carol and I, Kate Brown, co-chairs of the Voter Services Committee, appreciate these members for helping us make this event happen. Thank you. Serving as our moderator this evening, Marlene O'Brien, a lawyer and writer, has served as a director of the League of Women Voters at the local, state, and national levels, and as director of Massachusetts and National League's education funds. A graduate of Harvard College and Law School, and recent recipient of an award from the University for Distinguished Service, Marlene has practiced law in the private sector and in government. She now focuses on international humanitarian law public policy projects. Thank you, Marlene. She'll be joining the podium very shortly. So, some of you have already practiced this, but the audience is welcome to submit written questions right now for the school committee, and then we'll have a small intercession before we move on to the select board, so you can ask select board questions then, or if they're already submitted, we have them. So submit the written questions for the candidates on the index cards made available to you and collected by League volunteers. So if you would like a index card or you would like one collected, just give us a little raise. Thank you. Your questions must be pertinent to all seated candidates. Be clear and end with a question mark. All audience-generated questions will be reviewed to combine similar ones and eliminate any that are not issue-oriented. We may not be able to get to all of your questions, but we will do our best. Timekeepers are provided by the League to provide 15-second warning and 90-second stop indicators, right here in the front. Seated before you are the 5 contested candidates for the 2 school committee seats in the 2026 municipal election. From left to right, Justin Fosdick, Christina Bryant, Luca Betty, Michael Condroy, and Megan Parker. Okay, Marlene, it's now your turn.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to the candidates, and thank you to the audience and to our viewers at home. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts, we thank all of you for your civic engagement. This is your chance now to hear directly from candidates, unscripted and unfiltered. They do not know the questions that will be asked, but we try not to ask anything that's a gotcha. We want to ask things that, affect the people. And for those questions, what we do is have boots on the ground in the form of the wonderful League of Women Voters of the Plymouth area who generate these questions after speaking with others. And we also have the questions that you're providing now. And this forum is meant to help you learn about the candidates who very much want to represent you. Thank you all for taking the time to run, making the effort to run. It's not easy to be up here. We can be very proud of these candidates, all of them, and we can be very proud of you for wanting to learn more and be civically engaged. Pursuant to league rules, candidates have agreed not to solicit donations, make statements of a personal nature about any other candidate, or endorse any other candidate while on stage. These are very important rules. We've been at this in the League of Women Voters nationally for over a century. And every rule that I'm about to recite to you, it's important that I do because that is part of our guidelines. And I apologize for the length of the housekeeping, but it's important to us. So candidates, keep in mind, we're here tonight to learn what you think about issues, not what you think about other candidates or their qualifications. The audience is asked to remain silent during the answers. This means, I'm in a way sorry to say, refraining from applause, booing, obviously, moaning, groaning, sighing audibly. In other words, civility reigns, and we'll make sure it does. If there's any issue, I'll address that individually. Other rules to mention. The recording of this event may not be used or edited in whole or in part for any campaign purposes, but a link to the program on a candidate's website or social media is very welcome. When this event is aired, it must be aired in its entirety so that we don't just have select segments that one candidate may think may benefit it more others without any response. Campaign materials such as buttons, t-shirts, brochures, and signs may appear only outside, as you saw. We have quite a vibrant community here, but not inside the building. So there's no raising of a sign that you may have brought in from the lawn outside, nothing like that. Please refrain from everything like that, or you'll be asked to leave. Everyone present, including candidates, turn off your electronic devices, your cell phones, or at least the sound on them. Please check now. I'm going to count to myself to 5 to give you that time to double check. Okay, the candidates are seated in random order and will be asked questions thoughtfully generated by the league and by you, the audience, accordingly. Candidates, you have up to 90 seconds to respond to each question. You do not need to use all 90 seconds. When there are 30 seconds left for your speaking time, the yellow card will be raised. Please demonstrate. And when your time is up, the red card will be raised. Thank you. But you can finish your sentence. If you start a new sentence or subtly tack on a semicolon so as to continue, you may hear a very loud thank you from myself, which means time is truly up. Please, please answer the question asked, not the one that you wish you had been asked. Finally, unlike in loosely run debates, there's no crosstalk. All remarks need to be spoken to me, directed to me as the moderator, not to one another. So let's begin. We've already heard we have 5 contested candidates for 2 school committee seats. And you have here left to right, is it all right with all of you if I use first names only? We have Justin, Christina, Luca, Michael, and Megan. Before we get started, please give them a round of applause for being here. So Justin, our first question, what is your primary concern when it comes to our schools? By the way, this question we asked of all of you. So let's hope you hear it now and don't need to ask for it to be repeated. What is your primary concern when it comes to our schools? How would you address that issue?
Thank you. I think that our upcoming fiscal split, sorry, is this better?
Very
Thank
good.
you. Apologies. I'll start again. I think that the major issue facing us currently is the upcoming fiscal cliff that we've discussed a lot in town meeting recently, and making sure that we're retaining our excellent staff. Our schools are only as good as our staff is, and we need to make sure that they're well compensated and that we're maintaining our operating budget, and ensuring that our aging facilities are kept up with. I think that balancing that in tandem with the town-wide budgetary crisis is important, and making sure that we protect our tech programs, our VPA and STEM programs, so that we can continue to create well-rounded citizens prepared for the 21st century is important.
Christina?
Good evening. So I've run my campaign previously as well as now on 3 major goals. 1, continued equity. It's important that we ensure everyone that's involved in the school system has the tools they need to, the tools and access they need to be successful. In addition, I would also say by fiscal responsibility, we need to continue to have clear alignment and long-term planning that reflects our community's values. We heard just as recent as this morning, we are not alone in the challenge of budgetary constraints where school committees are concerned. And then third, I would say continued transparency within the school community as well as across the town. It's important we continue to collaborate and have conversations with all those that are impacted when making decisions versus making decisions in a silo, because that's not good for anyone.
Luca, again, the question is, what is your primary concern and how would you address it?
Okay, thank you. My primary concern right now is our parental input and how much we value their advocacy when it comes to curriculum and when it comes to their overall education experience. I think we need to make sure that parents are involved every step of the way and encouraged to speak at school committee as well as meetings and just overall advocate for their children's success and education. Thank you.
Michael?
I think the umbrella term that I would use to apply my most important issue. The button's it's on.
Yeah, just closer to the mic then.
Sorry. I think civic participation is the most important thing because I do think that the schools are a major bedrock of our civic culture. They are the source of our next generation's excellence. So, and beyond just our children and our youth, we need to have our older generations involved in the schools because we need more eyes on what's going on in the school. Not because that means that there's something nefarious going on in the schools, but when more people are paying attention, the students feel like members of the community rather than as a isolated segment who just have to get through school. The academics are of a greater quality. The vocational departments are better, more supported, more community involvement. More people go to the civic meetings, the school board meetings, and so on. And I think that therefore, and the budget is also tighter in terms of being better rather than perhaps bad spending of dollars. I'm not saying that that's happening now, but more eyes on the school system means a better school system, I believe. Thank you.
Megan?
My primary concern would be the students' well-being of the Plymouth Public Schools, their academic needs, but also their emotional needs. I would say that that's absolutely my primary concern. And as a potential member of the board, I would be very focused on the students and how our decisions would impact them and the positive and negative potential outcomes that could come from our decisions and how that would affect the students in their overall educational experience.
Well, thank you all for complete answers to the first question. We're on a roll here. Our second question, what are your thoughts on the current and proposed budgets for our school district? What are your top 3 priorities? Again, the league is asking that you be very specific here. So first, we'll start with Christina.
Okay. So I'm not sure how many people know this. I am currently an acting school school committee member. I think the challenges we are facing are again similar to what other towns are facing. Specifically inflation, which everyone can have some alignment to. Rising gas prices that contribute to our bus and transportation spending. We have a lot of ground to cover in Plymouth, as well as we have increased costs in our special education programs. A lot of that is also, we may not be able to meet the needs here in Plymouth, so we need to outsource. And contributing to that would be providing the transportation necessary for the children to get back and forth to that program. And then last but not least, increased healthcare. Increased healthcare is not necessarily just specific to school, but it's increasing all over the Commonwealth. So those are the challenges.
Thank you. Luca?
I think with a $230 million school budget, we should really focus on making sure that those tax dollars are being spent wisely and with respect to the people that pay them. I think my first priority would be to ensure that there's no theft or overspending going on. I think we need to have a strong auditing process to ensure that what Plymouth Independent posted recently about over 10 years, someone was stealing from us and we didn't catch on to that. I think it's important that we be transparent and accountable. I also think we need to work closely with the state to ensure funding for our bus programs, get more help from the state. But overall, the budget is an extremely important thing to me. I believe that with such a vast amount of money that we have access to, we need to make sure we're spending it accountably. Thank you.
And your third priority, we're asked for your top 3 priorities. Okay, fair enough. Megan, please.
My top 3 priorities for the budget. Is that what you asked? I'm sorry.
On the current and proposed budgets what are your thoughts on the current and proposed budgets for our school district? What are your top 3 priorities?
My top 3 priorities, number 1 would be the student needs of the Plymouth Public Schools. Within our schools, we have many diverse students with diverse learning needs, and that does put an impact on the budget, though I think it's our responsibility as a school and as a town and as a committee to address those needs and meet those needs of those diverse learners. Next, I think the staff compensation needs to be a forefront of our budget as well for retaining high-quality instructors within our buildings. And last, I think the facilities of our district would be another priority within the budget. I think if we maintain the facilities of our district, it will be a smart, fiscally responsible choice in moving forward.
Thank you. Michael?
My top 3 priorities would be the transportation issue. I think that this current arrangement where the state rules where we get more reimbursement if we have a regional high school, which we do not have, I think that's unfair. It's too black and white. We have, I believe, by geography, the largest school district miles wise in the state, and we do not get reimbursed the same way that many smaller school districts do just because they have a regional high school. I think that's unjust, and I've already spoken with Rep. Michelle Badger about it, and I look forward to, if I have the opportunity, working closely with her or advocating to her and her colleagues at the State House about getting us more state reimbursement for this transportation, because we've had an increase of over 20% of the price of it in the past few years, and that's only going to get worse. Like Christina mentioned, with rising inflation and gas prices. And generally, in the context of this economic cliff that we all hear about, we need to be able to look at the budget honestly and say, is there any possible cut we can make without cutting teachers? That is a priority of mine. I really respect and admire teachers and they already get paid less in this district than others around us. So I would not like to see any cuts made to those staff. But I think we need to look in with an honest eye and have in mind that we're heading towards a cliff. So that's my perspective.
Thank you. Justin?
Thank you. With 61% of our town's total budget being for the schools, and each year it increasing about 2% or more depending on inflation, as a maintenance budget, there's not really many new programs being added. And so my top three priorities, I think, would be to make sure that we're extremely focused on the Cold Spring Hedge program that's going on in terms of the feasibility study that will be happening this year, making sure we're making well-informed, data-driven decisions in regards to what is best for our community and students, and what will be most cost-effective, as well as focusing on preschool access that has been shrinking as of late, and we want to make sure that families with younger children continue to have access to those types of programs that make childcare easier for them, as well as making sure our special education programs are well-funded.
Thank you. We're now on question 3. How do you feel, this comes from the audience, how do you feel about MCAS testing or some graduation accountability? We'll start with Luca.
Yeah, so I took MCAS the whole time that I was in high school, and I think it was a highlight of the year, not necessarily in the best of ways. There's a lot of pressure on it. I think it's important to have some standardized testing to allow us to judge performance, so we have a metric. But I also believe that graduation should be a lot more than you pass the right amount of tests and now you get to go into the next grade. I think the goal of our school should be to prepare students not for the next grade, but for the next phase of life. And so I want to see us making sure that every student graduates high school not ready to go to college or anything like that, but to make sure they're ready for the next phase of life with critical life skills like fiscal responsibility and even stuff like this, like civic engagement. I think that's really important. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael?
Likewise, I remember when MCAS was pushed very hard, it was a requirement for me all throughout high school. I graduated in 2021, so it was pretty recent. But I definitely think it was pushed too hard in terms of a regimented, formalized way of how you're supposed to show that you're educated. I don't think a high score necessarily correlates to a great working intelligence or ability, but I also do think we do need a metric for measuring the actual content and quality of the education that students are receiving. I'm not sure what that would look like besides the current system, which is where MCAS is not required. But I do believe that we could be more rigorous in our academics. Our state average is not good, frankly. Maybe that speaks about the quality of the MCAS and the way they're scored, but only about half of students in most districts meet or exceed expectations. And I think either there's something wrong with our curriculum or there's something wrong with standardized tests, or maybe it's a mixture. And I definitely want to look into that, and I'd be advocating for either changing the test or increasing our scores, or again, a mixture. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan?
I think the MCAS testing, graduation accountability connection is just a speed bump for many students that already struggle within the education field. I think that students that already have the struggle within school already have enough up against them that I don't think that they need another hurdle to jump over just to receive a high school diploma. I think that it's important to put accountability within our schools and our educators and put trust in them that their assessment of those students is valid to move on from high school, not a standardized test developed by Pearson.
Thank you. Justin?
I would agree that it's very important that we have metrics for testing our students and understanding how our curriculum is reflecting back at the requirements that we're putting on the students. And we do want to be accountable, and accountability is very important in terms of how you are directing a child's future. And so being able to track those metrics is very important. I'm not sure that MCAS is the best method to track that progress. And I would be very interested in working further with the school committee into what other options that are available for our students. And I'd like to speak with students and faculty more deeply on this so that we
you.
can have a better understanding.
Christina?
So I'm going to quote Melissa Ferretti in her earlier Wampanoag celebration speech, where she said, people need to be seen clearly. And I feel that with MCAS, that doesn't allow the opportunity to see people clearly, especially to be working towards high grades on a test and not necessarily the experiences that are going to bring you beyond. I agree there needs to be metrics, but there's other opportunities that are available to meet graduation requirements. Metrics is something that was delivered at a state level. It wasn't something that from a town perspective, you could just opt in or opt out as to whether or not it could be a graduation requirement. So it would take continued advocacy with our legislators to ensure that we're advocating for what's best for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. We're on to another question from the audience. I've received the request, could you all be sure to speak up? By that, I think all we're saying is speak more closely to the mic. Next question. What would you do to protect and support minority students in the schools? LGBTQ, those from immigrant families, people of color, etc. We'll start with Michael.
I would emphasize the universal and equal treatment of all students, and I think that a good education delivered by the public schools is the best thing that it can give to any student, regardless of background or identity. I think that if we try to unite students in that identity as students, it might be more productive than rather to cut lines of any kind. But in my experience, the public schools have been extremely supportive of all groups. We talked about these issues all the time. There's pride flags and so on that I don't think the public schools can be criticized in that manner for how they deal with this issue. So I think if anything, maintaining course would be my prescription. I commend the way that they deal with it now. So that's my answer.
Megan?
I do have to say, I do think Plymouth Public Schools do a really nice job at this, supporting the differences of our student body. I do think I'm a proud Plymouth citizen in that respect. I think the Plymouth Public Schools already do a really nice job with this, though. To protect and support the minority students within our district, I think doing this through what Plymouth Public Schools are already doing, but also supporting them with different types of literature within our classes that are offered in the middle and high school level. There's many novels, both nonfiction and fiction, that I think could serve as mirrors for some of these students that are looking for some identity within some academic text. And within that can bring discussions within the classroom, and it also can bring support from peers. So I love answering a question that could be answered with adding some more literature within the schools to support those diverse needs.
Thank you. Justin?
Thank you. I think that I would agree with Megan in that our school district does a very good job at celebrating and representing diverse student groups. Though I would say that it's important that we do address the specific needs of our community members and individuals, and that we shouldn't treat everybody as equal and the same, in that not everybody has the same problems and not everybody goes through the same things. So those issues need to be dealt with on a one-to-one basis, and I would trust our counseling and student services staff to provide the assistance to those in need and make sure that we're continuing to support the administration's policy of that as well.
Thank you. Christina?
I think education continues to be key when serving diverse populations. I think it's important that there's continued conversations, continued representation, whether it's in literature, civic engagement, social studies. To be able to live and learn from the past is going to be important to continue to bring us into the future. One of the things I think, or efforts I'm most proud of, is prior to school committee, I served as vice chair on Plymouth, now known as Plymouth Plymouth for All, formerly Plymouth No Place for Hate. And during that time period, we built bridges to the schools to ensure that we were helping have schools be more involved in opportunities to talk about particular subjects, sing or participate in writings about MLK, but be more involved and understand that the world is bigger than Plymouth.
Thank you. And finally, Luca?
I think our school's number one priority is making sure every student goes there and feels safe and comfortable in the schools. I think regardless of race, religion, or any background, I think you need to feel free to express yourself in the schools. And I think it also goes farther than that. I think we need to make sure people don't feel outcasted by the school system. I think special education is extremely important, but I think for people with minor learning disabilities, I don't believe that telling them that they need a lot of extra assistance and pushing them off to the side is really helpful. I was put into learning disabled classes and I felt like I just was never comfortable within the school system. And I really wasn't able to advocate for myself to give myself the best chance to succeed. So I do believe that our school system should work for everybody.
Well, thank you. We're on to question 5 now, also from the audience. And thank you all for your very important and meaningful and clear questions, not to mention clear handwriting. So we're going to be starting with Megan for the next one and then wrapping around. What would you do to protect and support, how will you ensure that the qualities inspired in elementary school, kindness, compassion, respect, etc., are encouraged throughout a student's life?
I am an elementary school teacher, so this is a great question for me to start with. I think modeling that behavior as educators and as peer leaders within the upper building, within the middle and high school buildings is so important. I think this is a huge opportunity for our higher level, our older learners within the district to model that for our younger elementary students. The elementary students naturally look up to the older students within buildings, or in this case, within the district. And I think that would be a wonderful opportunity for the high school and middle school students that are showing that peer leadership to come to the elementary schools to really model that, so the elementary school students can see that kindness and compassion, empathy, and student leadership in action.
Thank you. Justin?
Thank you. I think that it's very important that we focus overall on kindness, compassion, and respect, not only for our elementary schoolers, but for everybody here and in our political races. And I think that it's important that we lead with kindness, compassion, and respect. And as an Eagle Scout, I feel like I embody those values very well. And I'd like to instill that on our community through leading by doing. I want to be the example and continue to be engaged in our community, showing up to events. And I think that this also would play into one of my goals is to increase civic engagement within the student population. And in my opening there, I think that politics needs to have kindness, compassion, and respect. And so showing our students that will be important. And that's how I would include that. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina?
I agree with Megan in regards to modeling is a very important skill. Each of our current elementary schools, each individual school has their own values, and they all embody or encompass around kindness, compassion, and respect, not only to themselves, but others. And then after they leave middle school, elementary, they go to the two middle schools that build on those core values. And I think what's important is when they move from middle to high school is putting those values to action and being able for those two age groups to be able to model them. And however that looks, whether it's amongst each other, whether engaging in civic engagement, joining clubs, but somehow being able to keep that magic from the elementary school going. Because there's somewhere that it stops between middle to high school where they're finding their own identities and they're making different decisions that are not kind, compassionate, or respectful.
Thank you. Luca?
So I think the way we start translating the kindness and respect to as people get older is by encouraging debate and encouraging discussion. You know, the world is getting a lot more openly political, and it's easy to just put a classmate in a category and close off that relationship. We should be encouraging a lot of civic discussion in our classes so that way we can humanize the other side and stop people from just putting each other in a category and fighting. I also think, you know, civic engagement, community engagement is extremely important. If you put a classroom of kids who might not agree on everything and you encourage them to go volunteer together, the more and more we help our community, we can do that through the school. I think that's really important to encourage kindness, respect for everybody. I'd like to see people tone it down a little bit and become more friendly with each other, especially in the schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael?
I would have to second the aspect of encouraging dialogue and debate, especially in classes like civics or economics, where they're more politically oriented, because I do remember in high school making multiple friendships with people who I probably never would have otherwise, because I had, as Lucas said, put them in a box, or they had put me in one. And it turns out we have a lot more in common than we have different between us. And I think that we need that more than ever now. And I know we all agree. I will say I know we all agree, because we're all so divided and polarized. Friends that you may have had 10 years ago, you won't talk to, or they won't talk to you. And the school, like I said earlier, is a naturally huge part of our civic culture. It can fix things or it can make things worse. And I believe that encouraging dialogue is a huge part of that. And I would also say, as another thing, I remember, again, I was recently a public school student in this town. I remember this myself, and I've heard from teachers a bit of frustration over the lack of disciplinary ability that they have over disruptive students, or rather students who are not kind, compassionate, and empathetic, and so on. And I would like to look into that and see if we could give them more instruments to address this issue, because I did notice it from K to 12. There's always certain ones, and whatever their reason, it's not castigating them or shaming them. Children or have certain problems or backgrounds with whatever, I understand it perfectly. But we do need to look into that more instead of just saying nothing we can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final question for this evening is as follows, and we'll start with Megan. What are your areas of concern regarding student achievement in our district? How do we measure how our schools are doing?
In regards to student achievement, I think my biggest concern would be the literacy gaps that we've really seen as educators, especially since the COVID pandemic. We have seen some pretty big literacy gaps within our students. Literacy is one of the most important acquired skills that a student will acquire and eventually build upon throughout their entire academic career. So I feel very passionate about literacy education, and that all begins in the early grades with early intervention in identifying students that may have reading differences or disabilities. I think the district has a responsibility to really identify those students that may be experiencing difficulties and really finding methods and the adequate instructors to address those needs and to support those students to get them where they need to be in regards to literacy achievement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin, we'll now move to you on the same question. So it's a two-part question. What are your areas of concern regarding the student achievement in our district? And how do we measure how our schools are doing?
Thank you. I do have some concerns in regards to, which I think is one of the most important goals, is to create well-rounded citizens ready for a 21st century workforce. And I have some concerns in terms of technological literacy. I think that it's important that students know how to use computers and how to browse the internet safely. But I also think it's important that there's not, say, an over-reliance on technology such as AI, and maybe not too early in adoption on using large language models in classrooms. I think that I would want to see more data and results in terms of how does that affect children and their development educationally. And then I also think that it's important, as Megan was saying, to get our literacy rates up. They are declining nationally, and we need to continue to be vigilant and enforce maybe more stringent protocols on how are we testing this and how are we maintaining these programs. And I'm not exactly sure how we're tracking the literacy rates, but I would be open to exploring that more, and I look forward to learning more about that.
Thank you. Christina?
So I'd like to answer the question in reverse. I think the district does an awesome job of coming to our committee meetings and regularly presenting their school improvement plans that's backed by data and facts regarding the programming that is happening in each individual school. From a concern perspective, it's something that I've always been vocal about since even joining the first race last year. So my main concern is I want to ensure that all the students in the Plymouth district has the best experiences possible, whatever that experience is for them. But what I want to ensure is that there's equity access to the programs across all the schools. So if we're doing music programming at South, I would expect there to be an offering or an opportunity to go to North to experience that same thing. So I would say my biggest concern is ensuring access and equity, but I think the school is currently doing a great job in regards to being transparent with communicating and using data to support how their schools are doing.
Thank you. Luca?
Yeah, I agree that we need to make sure our literacy is getting improved on. But I'm not sure if the way I'd measure excellence is the average GPA of our graduates. I think the way we need to measure our excellence is by talking to students 5, 10, 15 years after they've graduated and seeing if the things they learned in school affected them and had an impact on their life. I think we need to be honest, and I'm young, so it's a little offensive to me too, but the younger people, again, I think they're much less able to function within the world. I think we don't have enough literacy when it comes to finance or even how to navigate a job market. And I think if we just had a future prep class that was maybe not a graduation requirement, but heavily suggested, that could teach you all those things like even how to navigate credit cards, finding a job, do mock interviews, resume building workshops. I think things like that are super important because not every child is going to go to high school and say, I need to have a great GPA so I can get to college. A lot of kids are going to go into vo-tech, and we need to make sure that they're well taken care of as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. You can take it in either order. What are your areas of concern regarding student achievement in our district? And how do we measure how our schools are doing?
Well, I certainly share Megan's concern over literacy. I'm a big reader. I'm a bit of a nerd. And I definitely observed, humbly, not to say that, that I read better or anything like that, but I did know there's a lot of struggling. There's a lot of struggling to read out loud. And I think that it's a shame because we should be at a place where education is delivering the best quality for our students. And this year of 2026, not that we don't have any excuses, but one would expect how far along we are with all the technology at our hands. We would be able to deliver better education. I think we're falling behind in fundamentals because of the technological advancement, AI, too much screen time. I would like to see less emphasis on using computers, tablets, phones, whatsoever, whatever in classes, more books in your hand, writing with a pencil in your hand, because there are lots of studies showing that that is much more effective for cognitive development, memory, recall, and so on. And the system, in terms of measuring that, I'm not an expert on that, but I would certainly pursue whatever I can. I will look up studies, I will look up information, and I'm a fast learner, and I would certainly do my best to learn about that and pursue it to my best ability. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, now we've come to the time for 2-minute closing statements. And we'll go in the following order. Christina, Justin, Michael, Megan, and Luca. So Christina, you're up first.
Well, thank you to the league for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Hopefully this is the last time I tell this story, but I was just a parent that wanted to get involved. My kid was being redistricted and I wasn't happy about it. So I started coming to public comment and really expressing my frustration. But within that, there were other things that I was learning, and it no longer became about me, and it became about more than that. I just want to help people. I want to do the best job possible. I'm a collaborator. I love to have conversations, and I really have learned so much within this last year that I would love to be able to carry forward. And in order to do that, I need more time. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank fellow candidates. I think so many people brought such amazing ideas to the forefront. That is a huge consideration for all of us, whoever lands this seat, to take with them and to continue to lead with kindness and compassion and an open mind. We need to meet people where they are. We can't just think about ourselves in this. It has to be bigger than us to do what's best for the district. And that's all I'm asking to do. So thank you. I hate public speaking, by the way. So you're welcome.
Well, thank you. Justin?
Thank you. I want to say thank you to League of Women Voters, and thank you to Marlene for being our moderator, and thank you all for taking your time to show up here today. I'll start with a little bit about me. I am an Eagle Scout. I've been a town meeting member for the last 2 years. I've been appointed to the West Plymouth Steering Committee and the Citizens Advisory Committee for the airport. I really enjoy public service. I think that it's important that we're continuing to be civically engaged and engaging our community. And I really enjoy diving deep into these really complex and not easy to solve problems. We need to be collaborative. Through my last 5 years working with people at EdTV part-time, I've met some amazing students. I've seen some excellent VPA performances and athletic programs performances, met student athletes, broadcasters, and performers. And I think that our focus needs to be on protecting our student needs retaining our excellent staff, making sure that we have parent access to preschools and special education, as well as continuing to ensure that we are preparing our students to be well-rounded citizens and 21st century workforce prepared people. I'm looking forward to continuing to leading by doing and in any position that I'm in. And I hope that I have your support for school committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael?
Some background about myself too. I'm 22. I went to public schools here from K through 12. I graduated from Bridgewater State in December. I am a young father and husband. I have a definite stake in this town. I love this town deeply. Like I said, I'm a nerd. I'm a history nerd, and I love this town even more because of that. It's a great place. It has a great history, and I want to serve it deeply, badly. I have wanted to be a public servant since middle school, and I'm excited to be running now. And it has been an interesting experience and certainly a growing time for me. And I thank you all for coming and for taking a chance on all of us. And I would be very happy if you consider voting for me. If you value more community involvement, more civic participation by young people and by the older people through the mechanism of the school district. So thank you.
Thank you. Megan?
I'd like to thank the league for having us as well, and giving us the opportunity to introduce ourselves to you. A little about me. I've been a Plymouth resident my whole life, almost my whole life. I have been an elementary school teacher for 20 years. I've taught grades 1, 2, 5, and 6. I have my master's degree in teaching and curriculum, and I just got my graduate degree in educational leadership. I've always loved education. I've always known I've wanted to be a teacher. And now that I have children of my own, I have a middle schooler and I also have a 3.5-year-old who will be a future Plymouth Public School student. I have a lot of investment, both personally and professionally, in the Plymouth Public Schools. As an educator, I have a different perspective. I can kind of see the ins and outs of education. I see the challenges from inside the building, but I also see the potential of education as being a taxpayer and a parent as well. Something I really am passionate about, as I've mentioned, is the literacy education. One of my children has dyslexia, and that has become a forefront for me as a parent and as an advocate for him. So I am just here to try to make the Plymouth Public Schools more of a student-centered place, more than it already is. And I think I can bring some more perspective to the table. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Luca, we're ending this panel with you.
Amazing. I'd like to say thank you to the league for organizing this. This is what's really important about our community, is engagement. I'll let people know I went to both North and South High School. I went to Indian Brook and Hedge, so I have been around this town's education system. I think I have a very unique perspective as to how it can be improved on. And I think if the people in our school system see someone like me who didn't necessarily go through school the traditional way, they'll feel a lot more comfortable to go and advocate for themselves, whether it's to the committee or just personally. And then for my final remarks, I'd just like to ask everyone a few questions. You don't actually have to answer out loud. If you believe that parents are the backbone of our community and should have as much right to an input and advocacy for their students' education, then please vote for me on May 16th. If you believe that our budget needs to be spent wisely and with complete transparency, then please vote for me on May 16th. And finally, if you believe our school system needs to work for everybody, then please vote for me on May 16th. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I'd also like to thank our police for being here. We appreciate your presence in securing our hall. May we give a round for first the police. And now for each and every one of our candidates. Thank you for engaging and really embodying civility here in Plymouth. I appreciate exactly what you did, was follow every guideline, be courteous and thoughtful, prepared and yet spontaneous and informative to edify these voters. So just to be clear, you'll all have the chance to vote for 2 of the 5 of these in the coming election. Thank you.
Could we just ask you guys to stay seated for a photo op? And the audience will be taking a 5-minute break to set up the select board panel and then start with the select board candidates. Thank you. Moving into our forum that hosts the 4 Select Board candidates for 2 seats on the Select Board for the 2026 municipal election. So seated before you are the 4 contested candidates for the seats. From left to right, we have Scott Vecchi, then Dick Quintal, then Kevin Canty, and Betty Cavaco. I'm sorry, Betty. Got caught. Thank you very much. Okay, Marlene, we're ready for your, and Marlene knows she's going to try to speak closer into the microphone so that she can be heard better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me okay now?
No, it's like one fist.
How is this? Well, thank you all for being here. The candidates are seated in random order and will be asked questions generated by the league and by you, the audience members, accordingly. Candidates, you'll have up to 90 seconds to respond to each question. You don't need to use all 90 seconds. If you don't, we'll have more time for more questions. When there are 30 seconds left for your speaking time, a yellow card will be held up. And when your time is up, a red card will be raised. But you can finish your sentence. If you start a new sentence, you'll hear a very loud thank you and please stop. There will be no crosstalk. In other words, all candidates speak through the moderator. That's yours truly. Let's begin. From left to right, we'll have the first question, and then we'll basically cycle through, starting with the person to the first one's left to be number 1 for the next round. So may I ask Scott, and may I call you all by your first names? Is that okay? Thank you. Scott, what is your specific expertise and what town problem would your experience help solve?
Well, I'm currently a practicing attorney, and my legal knowledge is one of my stronger points. And how that would benefit the town of Plymouth is the legal analysis of all the problems that we deal with on a daily basis. Right now, my primary focus is on our budget. I've served on the Advisory and Finance Committee for the past almost year and went through this last budget cycle, learning an in-depth knowledge of our budget and the troubles we face ahead. And I believe those two things paired together would greatly assist the town of Plymouth. Thank you.
Thank you. Dick, what is your specific expertise and what town problem would your experience help solve?
I wouldn't call it expertise, but I have been on the board for 21 years, so I'd call it more institutional knowledge of what the town's been through. Been here, been there, been through rough economic times, middle of 9 C cuts. So I'm very well versed in that and seen it happen before and know what to do.
Well, thank you. Kevin, what is your specific expertise and what town problem would your experience help solve?
Sure, thank you very much. My name's Kevin Canty. I'm a local attorney, a lifelong Plymouth resident. Prior to serving on the Select Board, when I was elected in 2023, I served on the Advisory and Finance Committee for 9 years. When I was in that role, I got to learn everything about how town government worked. Everything went through the FinCom before it went to town meeting. They say all roads lead to Rome. Everything in town government goes through the Advisory and Finance Committee. So I know how our system of government works. I also have legal experience in the community. I'm a criminal defense attorney. But I've been a kid here. I went to school here. I came back from college here. I started my career here and bought my first house here. I know what it's like to live in Plymouth in all those stages of life. My biggest problem that I see in this town is that fewer and fewer people are going to be able to say that in the coming years, because I think we're pricing the next generation of our community out of this town. And I think we're doing that because we haven't focused on long-term planning. I know how our government works, and I have a deep personal investment in the future of this community. What I can help this town do is what I've been doing for the last 3 years, focusing on long-term planning and making sure that every decision that I make today has the implications of not just what it means today, what it means next year, in the next decade and for the next generation. That's the expertise that I have brought and will continue to bring to the Plymouth Select Board. Thank you.
Thank you. And Betty, we turn to you. What is your specific expertise and what town problem would your experience help solve?
Well, I think the first thing is taxes. Taxes, taxes, taxes. We've got to get something in place so we're not taxing our residents out of their homes. My expertise is negotiating. We negotiated the last PEC agreement, which is healthcare, and along with Mr. Quintal, and we saved $20 million for the residents and $200 million for OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits. And those figures have been confirmed by our finance director. But really, I notice a lot, and they still, even though I've been out of office, I did serve for 6 years and left and then back. But people just want to be heard. They want to communicate. They want, I mean, even still, I used to get messages and phone calls and text messages. And I think it's important that we listen to the people and then kind of go our way with their direction.
Thank you very much. For this question, second question, also generated by the league itself, and then we'll be turning to audience questions as well. First, we'll have Dick, then Kevin, then Betty, then Scott. So Dick, here we go. And I won't repeat this question for each of you unless you request me to. Do you see nuclear power as potential revenue creation to help balance the town budget? If so, how would you encourage that to bring results in the near term?
To be quite honest with you, I'm the one on the board right now that brings this up periodically. I have for over a year. I think it needs a good look, a good conversation, and in the end, it's up to the residents in the community to feel if they want it or they don't want it. That being said, they're building them all over the country. We need to have clean energy, and right now it's the cleanest form of energy. The last plant we had was, I call it a dinosaur, to try to stay in my 90 seconds here. And it is. We have some waste here, but the new plants, the SMR 300s, they reuse the waste over and over, so you don't have that issue. France has taken the lead on this. If you Google it, you'll see. And that's what the rest of the world is doing. So everyone might not be a fan of nuclear power, but I think it needs a good conversation. It needs the facts, the scientific evidence, and it's definitely a tax cutting, equalizing part of our community. And with that, the 100 acres that are already disturbed, the other 1,400 could go right in conservation. And you could make a deal, a pilot agreement, payment in lieu of taxes, to maybe a discount in electricity rates for Plymouth residents.
Thank you. Kevin?
Thank you. So I think that nuclear power is a significant public concern. I think a lot of people in the community are glad that Pilgrim closed. I think we need to diversify our tax base and find other revenue streams by bringing in new commercial development for blue-collar jobs, trade jobs, white-collar professional jobs, so that more people can live and work in this community. That's, I think, the way out. I think that this reliance on these big swings that are going to solve all our problems is not a beneficial strategy. We have seen this before in the community, and it has not worked to our benefit. Even if a nuclear reactor were to be sought, it would take at least a decade if we started working on it proactively right now. Further, SMRs are actually not technology that runs on spent nuclear fuel from prior reactors. That's actually pressurized water reactors. Those are the reactors that are in France. It requires a secondary enrichment process of the spent nuclear fuel, which requires an entire other procedure in order to accomplish that. So I think there are a lot of issues with that particular approach. I think it would be much more responsible as a community for us to bring in the type of jobs that we can bring in today that can let more and more residents live and work in the same community. Over 70% of our residents commute outside of Plymouth to be able to afford to work here. Over 70% of the people that work here commute from other communities in order to work in this community. That's not sustainable, and we need solutions today, not in a decade. Thank you.
Thank you. Betty?
Yes, so the SMRs are something that they are looking at, and I think that if the residents want them, then they should have the ability to say, yes, we want it. I mean, the first 25 years that we had Pilgrim, the monies weren't put in the right places, but those were good jobs. Those are good paying jobs. And every 18 months, we brought in 1,500 people that did our restaurants and rented from homeowners. And it's been a big loss for the industry and a big loss for Plymouth as well. Now, I don't know where Kevin got his information, but I've spoken to some of the engineers there. And the fuel rods that we have in cask now, they're only 40% used. So that 60% is something that they could use in SMRs. And I think we need to, whether it's going to have to go through the state and everywhere else, but I think people want revenue, they want that. And the other thing is our medical teams that we have, biohazards, all that, I'd like to reach out to Children's Hospital and see if they can bring a satellite down here.
Thank you. Scott?
And I've said this several times. If they were to give us the Pilgrim 1600, build us a police and fire station, and give every resident of the town of Plymouth discounted electricity, I'd let them put it in my living room. But it really isn't what my opinion on that is, because I'm running to represent you. So it would matter what you, our community, wanted it to happen at Pilgrim Station, not what Scott wants. That being said, there is no near-term revenue in this. It's 10 years out. We need to focus on our finances right now. The budget we just passed is supposedly balanced as long as nothing happens. The next one is already $1.5 million in the hole, according to Lynn Barrett. I've proposed 3 separate non-tax revenue streams, 2 of which are actually green energy: hydropower and landfill gas to electricity, using the methane that we vent into the atmosphere, as revenue streams generating electricity to run our electric meter backwards and save in fixed costs. The other revenue stream I proposed was for us to take over our own ambulance service. I currently work part-time on an ambulance, and I never realized how much money was involved in the medical field transporting people. Fall River uses a third service model and does intercity transfers to generate money into an enterprise account that funds salaries, maintenance, equipment, and any ancillary things they need. So I want to focus on our finances now. No override, complete audit, and new revenue streams. Thank you.
Thank you. For the next question, we'll start with Kevin and then go to Betty, Scott, and Dick. How should we balance the need for economic growth and environmental preservation?
Thank you. So we need smart and balanced economic development. We need to make better use of the areas that we've already zoned for commercial and light industrial. We can do that by looking at our current zoning to make sure that it's still working for us. There are, for example, in North Plymouth Industrial Park, there's 2 gyms and 2 schools in there. I don't think that's the best use of that particular parcel. I would instead look to create new zoning bylaws or zoning overlay districts to bring in vocational jobs, plumbers, electricians, carpenters that are the backbone of the any local economy. I think we need more white-collar professional jobs that provide good wages to the people that work in them and vital services to the community in which they are in. And also, we need to leverage the relationship that we have with Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center to bring in more biotech and medical jobs into this community. They provide, again, good services to the residents, but also good paying jobs. Again, so many of our residents are commuting outside of Plymouth in order to work, to afford to live here. That's not sustainable. Their quality of life is suffering, and we need to bring in more jobs into this community, into those areas. If we concentrate the development into areas that are already disturbed and already zoned, we can preserve our open space. Over 38% of Plymouth is an open space. I think that's great, and I'd like to see that continue to be the case. We don't need to ruin our natural resources or threaten our aquifer as long as we make better use of the areas we've already identified for those purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we turn to Betty. Again, balancing the need for economic growth and environmental preservation.
For economic growth, there is, we talk about having these businesses come in and we want them here, but we don't offer anything to get them here. So I think that, having an incentive program, maybe it's, a cut rate in taxes the first year or something to try to get people to commit here. I know that zoning, we definitely have to look at zoning. Some of our areas are zoned for like a 35-foot height or a 55-foot height. And these big businesses come down here and they don't want to go out, they want to go up. So I think we're going to have to take a look at that. And, like saying bio, I would really love to get some of the bigger hospitals down here for satellite, because that will be immediate. Yes, nuclear is going to take 10 years, but I think for right now that we have to concentrate on that.
Thank you. Scott?
Thank you. Growth is important, but our environment is finite. While we are faced with a build-out at Red Brook and a build-out at Pine Hills that's going to stagnate our revenue stream and our new growth and new development, we need to realize that we've already encroached upon some of our wells, and our aquifer is probably our most precious resource. We don't want to damage our aquifer to the point where we have to start looking at desalination or something else. That's a path that we don't want to go to. I embrace our environment. I think our environment's one of the most important things that we have in our lives, but we need to focus on light industrial. When you look around and you see Shops at 5 and you look into the North Plymouth Industrial Park, we can't dictate who does and doesn't rent there, but we can encourage businesses, light industrial businesses, which provide more revenue than they take in services, which is important. Because if we bring in a big box store and it uses more services than it brings in tax revenue, then it's a negative gain. So developing a more friendly environment to business. Somebody who ran a business, small business, if you remember Mayflower Taxi, I ran that for 15 years, right? And I'll tell you, it was difficult to run a business in Plymouth because we weren't always as friendly to the businesses as we needed to be. So I would encourage light industrial, new businesses, and all that other stuff while maintaining a very high standard for our environment and our aquifer and limiting the encroachment upon the existing wells. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Dick, balancing economic growth and environmental preservation.
Okay, my record on the environment, I was one of the founders of the CPC Act. Back when we first enacted it, I supported it and worked on there for years. So I have a record with that. As far as business development goes, everybody gives you lip service. The simple fact is this: your industrial parks are at capacity. Plymouth is not a business-friendly community. We got a bad reputation. Everybody wants it, everybody talks about it until it's in their backyard. Then it's an issue. We need to create a business district or two. We need to look in those business districts at height requirements. We have a 35-foot height requirement in Plymouth, which I totally support in the proper areas. But for some of these big blue-collar jobs and whatnot, we've already had them knock on our door and leave because they have to go this way rather than this way, and this way is cheaper, and more economical, I guess is the word. So those things all have to be done. And talking about our environment, there's another agreement underway in Cedarville for 128 acres to be developed or taken out of 61A. That's forestry. So we'll see who supports buying that and putting that in conservation, because as I sit here, I'll tell you I do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the audience for that Great question, and now we'll have another one from the audience about the CPA tax. We're going to start with Betty and then circle around to Scott, Dick, then Kevin. Do you feel our CPA tax has been managed properly and distributed fairly? What would you do differently, if anything? Thank you.
I serve on the CPC, so do I think it's managed correctly as far as I'm concerned, but I think we have to put more emphasis on what we need to do. It goes 10%, 10%, 10%, affordable housing, recreation, and historical. And right now, we're in a housing deficit, and we have like no affordable housing. So we have, invested a lot of money. We have a pretty high ticket out there. And I think now the board moving forward, they want to start paying down. So, but I don't think that anyone would be against more affordable housing in the right place. So I think CPA is great, CPC. I served there when I was a select board member, and I serve there now. And they're very passionate people, and I love open space. So everything I try to do is, kind of guarantee some open space there for us.
Thank you. Scott? You're up.
Thank you. The CPA tax, it's a very, very important thing. One of the things that we need to realize is just how many taxes every individual taxpayer is subject to. Whether you're taxed on your house, you're taxed on your car, you're taxed on the gas you buy, you're taxed on the money you make, you're taxed on the money you spend. So we really owe it to the taxpayers to be as frugal and as conscientious with their money as we can possibly be. Recently, the CPC has spent a lot of money. And, I just want to make sure that when we're spending this money, that we're really evaluating, not just buying everything, but buying things strategically so that we make sure that we maintain reserves. And again, we've spent a lot of money very recently, enough that I was becoming concerned about how much money we were spending out of the CPC money. We want to make sure if something comes up, that we have the money necessary in order to move forward, if we need to move forward as quickly as possible, for something that's very strategic to our town of Plymouth. But again, the important part is to recognize that that is a tax. And it isn't the town's money, it's not the CPC's money, it's your money. And we owe it to you to be as frugal and as responsible with that as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Dick?
Yes, I think that they've borrowed a lot of money. I think right now the debt on that is 9 million, and I don't know what year that would be paid off, if they were just to pay off, what they owe. I know years ago, with Ken Tavares, we stopped it, and I also stopped it 2 years ago when they came before me here and the board, asking questions like, how much do we owe? And, well, all the intentions are good. You have to watch that, because you're really paying a lot of interest that way. So out on the trail, I've been hearing people having trouble paying their taxes, paying their mortgages. So we have to be very careful. I mean, you look at the money they put in the Symes house, $4.5 million, $4.1 million, and we're pretty much gonna be done with that piece of property. So that wasn't a good investment. We've heard a lot the last couple of days at the community health plan that we've attended, a lot of us have attended, and a lot about affordable housing. Maybe you took that $4.5 million and bought duplexes and smaller houses and partnered with the state, let them be in charge of the rents. You could really make affordable houses for the people that can't afford to live here. That's my answer to that. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Kevin?
Thank you. So I do think that it is managed properly. The CPC votes on applications that they receive. They do have a lot of authorized spending, which is colloquially referred to as debt. but they are working on paying that down. But I do think we should be more proactive in seeking out more creative, affordable housing opportunities and more strategic in selecting our open space purchases in the future. Open space, as I said earlier, we have 38% of the community in open space, which is great. Open space provides passive recreation, active recreation opportunities, as well as protection to our environment and protection to our sole source aquifer, the single drinking source for us and many other communities in the area. So it's of vital importance that we maintain that. And we also can use strategically our affordable housing funds to target, we currently require for multifamily developments or multi-unit developments that they're 10% be built by the developer in affordable housing. We should be using our CPA funds to increase that 10% number up so that we are catching up on our subsidized housing inventory. That prevents us from being vulnerable to 40B developments that override local zoning and negatively affect our neighborhoods and residents' quality of life. If we are mindful in protecting our wellheads and vital natural resources and strategic in how we use those affordable housing dollars, I think that would be the best path forward for the CPC and the CPA. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now turning to our fifth question. This also comes from the audience. Thank you very much. And, we're continuing to collect questions. If you have another one based on what someone has said or whatever, as long as your question relates to all candidates, can be answered by all candidates. That's key. Okay, so this question, and we're going to start with Scott, then move to Dick, Kevin, and Betty. This question is about the Plymouth Community Trust bylaw that was recently passed at town meeting. Do you believe this bylaw is beneficial to Plymouth? If elected, would you work to repeal or support this bylaw? Thank you. And again, we're starting with Scott.
My opinion on this, and I've been very clear and very vocal on it, I believe that municipal officials should focus at the municipal level. The immigration and that whole level of activity is a federal level of which the select board has no control. My concern when it came up in front of the Advisory and Finance Committee was no matter how well-intentioned we are, we cannot determine how the federal government interprets that. And if the federal government interprets that as sanctuary city language, then that could jeopardize our federal funding. So that was my primary concern. I have a lot of friends, people that came here from Haiti on TPS, people who have emigrated, became naturalized citizens, and I commend all of them seeking the American dream, right? But that really isn't what a select board should focus on. The select board should focus on municipal operations, especially with the financial crises we face. And my concern is that we would jeopardize the SAFER grant that the fire department wants to get for 8 new firefighters. And again, we have no control over how the federal government interprets the language within that bylaw. And I just really do not want to see us lose any federal funding in this troubling economic times. We really have to avoid the financial cliff by any means. Thank you.
Thank you. We turn to Dick.
All right, thank you. No, I voted against this when it came before the board. I believe we have department heads, we have a police chief that is well-versed in law enforcement, and when he tells me that it can make confusion in how the officers are reacting on these situations, if they're called on a situation. He told us 2 years ago, I didn't write the date down, a couple of years ago when this all started, in executive session, that if it was civil, Plymouth Police Force was really staying out of it. If it's criminal and they have to go, they're going to assist and watch and make sure the laws are carried out to a T. That's pretty much what the police chief told me. So that's why I take the stance I take. And the meddle with this stuff when you're smarter than your police chief is very dangerous stuff. And all it does in a community, and especially this one, is cause division. And I live in it. I live in North Plymouth. Thank you.
Thank you. So we turn to Kevin now. Again, for the audience's sake as well, the Plymouth Community Trust bylaw. Basically, where do you stand?
Sure. So I live in North Plymouth too. And when ICE was in the community, people had a lot of concerns. People were not going to work. They were not keeping their kids in school. Students in school were concerned if they were to come home that their parents wouldn't be there. And while what immigration enforcement policy is and how it's going to be enforced is a federal issue, when it affects the people in your community, it is a municipal issue. And the select board needs to be able to chew gum and walk. We need to be able to talk about things that are affecting our residents and their concern, and also be able to talk about the budget and financing in our community. I do support the community trust bylaw because it established for all the public to see that we will not participate with federal and immigration enforcement opportunities, and we will not do that at all in the future. It is not just a select board policy now, it is a durable town meeting passed bylaw that cannot be easily repealed. I think that was essential because I think in this climate that we are in, the overreach of this particular federal agency, their shock and awe tactics, it's not something that we should be supporting. And if we are silent on that issue, we are complicit. And I, for one, am not going to be complicit in that. I think we need to take a stand. This is not something that we can afford to be on the sidelines about. And I think in the future, people will remember where people stood on this issue. And I was very clear from the start where I stood. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we turn to Betty.
Well, I have to say that I completely, I didn't like it. I had a problem with, we have an accredited police department. And I don't know if folks know how difficult that is to get an accredited police department. I think that it's their job. And not only is there confusion, that bylaw that we see now engulfs all town employees. So when 9 unions come to the table in January and they want to negotiate a change in their working conditions, how do we do that? You know, what are we going to do? But honestly, I was actually disgusted at the whole thing. And Chief Flynn is a great chief. We have great officers. And he had a policy in place already that he'd been using. So there was no need to go that route.
Well, thank you very much. We're now going to turn to our 6th question. We're making very good time here. We'll start with Scott, and then move on to Dick, Kevin, and Betty. No, excuse me. We'll start with Dick, move on to Kevin, Betty, and Scott. Many have noticed a decline in civility at select board meetings. What do you think is the cause of this? And what would you propose to do to address this? It clearly is a concern. This question comes from the League, which of course has a fundamental aim of civility in government. Thank you. So again, we're starting with Dick.
Okay, thank you. I have to tell you, the last 11 months on this board for me have been the worst 11 months in my 21 years. We worry about, what would you just say, chewing gum and walking? Let's talk about chewing gum and walking. We've made bike laws, we've made police chief bylaws over and over. Who's worrying about your tax bill? Who's worrying about a more economic development? And I'm being serious right now. Okay? Those are the things this board, if elected, should be working on. Not when you have department heads you're paying, I don't know how much, and you're rewriting laws. I asked a couple weeks ago, let's prioritize our goals. I think there's 200 for the town manager. They asked for agenda items. They put 12 to 18 things on at one meeting. That's not normal. Okay? And not only is it not normal, then they're complaining that it takes 5 months to get something that they brought up on an agenda. So, there's your answer.
Thank you. Kevin.
Thank you. So when I was elected 3 years ago, I I thought that the select board needed to change the way it did business. And I think for the last 3 years, I've tried to be that change. And although I have not been perfect at all times, I have never attacked a colleague of mine. I have stayed consistent and respectful to people that disagree with me. I do my best to stay above the fray and focus on the issues ahead of me, whether that be at a select board meeting or in a campaign. My priority is delivering on the issues that my constituents care about and trying to make Plymouth better and move Plymouth forward. I have tried to increase community engagement and transparency, to be more responsive to residents, to make the board meet more often, to deal with more substantive issues, to deal with the concerns that the community has. It has not always been easy, but I have always done my best to try and make Plymouth better than when I walked into my first town meeting related meeting back in 2014 when I started on the Advisory and Finance Committee. Again, I have not always been perfect. We all make mistakes. But I think when my service concludes, whether it be on May 16th if I don't win the election or sometime down the road, I will be able to look back and say that I did the best I can every day to try and advance the priorities that I believed in with respect and dignity. Thank you.
Thank you. Betty? Could you repeat that? Yes. Many have noticed a decline in civility at select board meetings. What do you think is the cause? And what would you propose to address this?
Well, I mean, I served on the select board for 6 years, and I don't think I've ever seen anything like what we've seen in the past year. You know, when someone wants something on the agenda, you just put it on, not, you know, loading 18 things. You know, having 5 and 6 hour meetings, there are studies that show that after 90 minutes, people lose interest. So I believe there is great dysfunction, and you're going to need somebody on the board that can bring everybody together and move forward, because all of this, the bickering and all that, it's ridiculous. We're adults, so.
Thank you. Scott?
I believe this current select board is probably the most broken, dysfunctional select board that we've had, with a complete lack of civility towards each other, both in public and in private. I have a long track record serving on various boards and committees. I started as a town meeting member. I became part of the Charter Review Committee, and we took a first trip through our charter. I went on to the Historic District Commission. From there, I went on to the Charter Commission, the last Charter Commission, and the Redevelopment Authority, and now the Advisory and Finance Committee. So I've been through many a meeting. And one of the best compliments that I ever received was during the Charter Commission, when somebody told me, "You're the voice of reason in the room," that we look to you to settle this down and find a intelligent and logical middle ground to it. And that was several years ago, because I believe that was 22 to 24. But that stuck with me forever. And if you've watched any of the meetings that I participate with as public comment, everybody deserves to be heard. Don't have to agree with them, but they have their allotted time at the podium to speak. And we shouldn't deride those people or make them feel not heard. So that's the big thing. Some people just need to be heard. And I've always been that person that will listen. And I see myself as doing the same thing that I did on the Charter Commission on the Select Board, being the middle ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This next question also comes from the League, and it comes out of a sense of history and patriotism, optimism, and also concern. We're going to start with Kevin and then move to Betty, Scott, and Dick. The town recently requested volunteers for a committee to organize events for our nation's 250th anniversary. Does this, that means doing it so recently, show a lack of planning? Do we have time to do something appropriate now as, quote, America's hometown, close quote? So again, we'll start with Kevin.
Sure. So I think that There are unique ways that Plymouth can be recognized as part of the wider ceremonies, like recognizing the contributions of Mercy Otis Warren, for example, and bringing the conversation about Plymouth beyond just 400 and 1620, but rather into our contributions to the wider country and what it became after 1776. It would have been great to do it sooner than we did it, but we have been focused on financial related issues and dealing with issues that have come up that we, like the Atlantic Country Club last summer, negotiations ongoing with Holtec, other legal matters that we've had to deal with. But we still have time to make meaningful contributions to it. I think what we do for the 250th shouldn't be something that we just do this year. I think it should be part of the continuing fabric of our community. I do think that Plymouth has a special component of the American story, and I think that our country is at a crossroads about where it's going to go and what it's going to be later in the next few years. And I think in a lot of ways our town is at a crossroads in that regards too. I hope that we're able to move both of those things forward in a positive way. I am engaged and involved to try and do that, but we shall see what the future holds for our town and for our country. Thank you.
Thank you. So Betty, turning to you. So the question is about our 250th. Only recently starting to have a call for volunteers. Do we have time to do something appropriate as things stand now as America's hometown?
Well, that'll depend on who's going to move these things forward. I mean, Plymouth, with our planning department, you really should have like an event planner. I feel that the 250th has been a big opportunity that Plymouth has lost. I mean, we have a great harbor. We have, we've brought in ships before. I think they should be doing it again. I couldn't believe last year and the year before, we never even had a blessing of the fleet. So someone is dropping the ball somewhere that we need to do these things, and it does bring in people, and we want people to see this beautiful town. But I can't say it's too late. It's not too late for some people, but if they're going to move along like they have been and just calling for a committee now, you're not going to really do much of anything.
Okay, thank you. Next, we turn to Scott.
Thank you. Yes, I find the lack of preparation completely unacceptable and inexcusable. I mean, it's not like we didn't see this coming for 249 years. And to say, oh, by the way, July 4th is their 250th anniversary at this point in juncture, is really putting that onus on somebody. Are there key players out there that can pull it off? Most certainly. I know some of the people that are your go-to people in the community, and they can make amazing things happen. The problem comes when we focus on crisis management. The problem is when all you are doing is crisis management, everything becomes a crisis. So if we focus just on this and we can't look ahead in the future because we're focused on a budget issue, and so then all of a sudden 250 becomes a crisis, then we focus on crisis management, then we allow the next thing to wane and become a crisis. We have to have foresight, we have to have vision, and we have to have true leaders that look to the future to bring us all together. There are people in our community that can pull off the 250th. I know that, and I hope they step up, and I hope it's very successful. But we can't let the next event, like the 250th, become a crisis again. We have to have vision, we have to have foresight, and we have to identify the key players well in advance to give them time to make these things happen. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much to all of you for your thoughtful responses to not only that question, but to all. Oh, excuse me. I apologize. We have one more person to hear from. Please go ahead.
That's okay. I was actually the one that brought this up at one of our meetings because I hadn't heard much about it. And I also took it one step further to make a motion to allocate $50,000 for July 4th $150,000 for the Thanksgiving celebration because it's our 250th year. Also, we put together a committee. It's either 15 or 17 organizations all together. They met last week. I had to go to another meeting, so I stopped in to say, I wish you the best. I'm so happy to see you all in one room. And they are listing those and working together to bring the 250th, promote it properly. And the reason that I asked for the extra money for these events, because I thought it should be a little more special this year. Then come to find out, you hear some of the stories that Mr. Tavares told and what goes into this. Just the public safety bill for the 4th of July, I think is $106,000. We need to, I sit on the VSB, and if I'm elected and continue on there, we have to revisit that. And the first thing that comes off that tax is our public safety. So our residents can enjoy these festivities, and they do. A lot of the families and the people, it's a good economic driver. It's the right thing to do. It hasn't been looked at in years, so I'm up for the challenge if I'm elected. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to turn to closing statements. And unlike the responses to the questions, for which 90 seconds were allowed, for this, we have a full 120 seconds, 2 minutes for each person. And the randomly generated order of these are as follows, even though you spoke last, Dick. Dick, and then Scott, and then Betty, and then Kevin. So please start when you're ready, Dick. Yes, and you have 2 minutes again.
Thank you. Again, thank you all for coming, asking your questions. If there's something you wanted to ask and you didn't have time, you can always call me tomorrow or the next day, whenever you want. Stop in, always available. I hope that I know you'll all go out and vote. And maybe you can find it in your heart to give me a vote. I think I'm pretty much right on the money with, you might not always agree with how I do something, but you'll always agree that I tell you like it is. I tell you the truth. And if that's what you're looking for and you want to have people and a board working on your issues, your taxes, your business development, you have a lot of lip service tonight, show me the records on it. Show me what you've done for economic development. You got to ask your candidates these things. I live it, so I definitely understand it. So on that, I'll finish up and say thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Next, we're turning to Scott.
First, I'd like to say thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you to the wonderful audience that we have out here that spent your night both with the school committee candidates and with us, becoming a more informed and educated voter, because you are the key to our future. Because you're going to take the information here, you're going to go back, you're going to share it with your family, you're going to share it with your friends, and educate those around you on who is best for our community. All right, I'm going to ask you to 2 things. I'm going to ask you to stop voting for the people that got us into this mess, and I'm going to ask you to vote with your wallet and vote for Becky. I have very clearly stated an economic vision, which starts with no override. You cannot afford the taxes you're paying, let alone an override of your taxes. We need a full audit.
I need to just interrupt for a moment and say there's a specific league rule I referred to earlier that no candidate on any panel is permitted under league rules to endorse any other candidate. Okay, thank you. Proceed.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I violated the rule. I didn't realize how I did it. Anyway, but I'll continue. So I presented a very clear economic vision, a full audit of the town of Plymouth. I will not ask you for any more money until I am fully certain where every dime of your taxpayer money goes. And the things that have happened at the school where people were embezzling items and selling them and all that other stuff could have been caught with an audit. I currently serve on the FinCom's audit subcommittee, and we recently found that we can't audit anything because we don't have a budget. And if we do try and audit something, we have to ask the town manager for permission. That was the last meeting that we had, right? So we need to get the Office of the State Auditor here, look at the entire town, all of its components, anything that is an ancillary function, and make sure your taxpayer dollars, followed by going through all of the line items in the budget. All right, each line item isn't scrutinized as hard as it needs to be. We need to surgically trim the fat that's in those line items before we wind up cutting to the bone. Because if we cut to the bone and we go off the financial cliff, we are going to lay off police, fire, and teachers, and that's unacceptable. And I will not allow that to happen as your next select board member. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we turn to Betty.
Thank you once again, and thank you for taking the time to learn about me and my vision for Plymouth. This town is not just my home, it's our home, and its future depends on all of us coming together. I have the experience and the dedication and the proven record to deliver real results, like saving Plymouth over $20 million through tough contract negotiations. I know what matters to you because it matters to me. I share your concerns and your dreams for our community. I will always put Plymouth first, listen to your needs, and work tirelessly to make life better for every resident, no matter who you are or how you voted in the past. Now I'm asking for your support and your vote. Let's keep Plymouth moving forward, protecting what makes our town special and building future filled with opportunity, fairness, and pride. Together, we can achieve great things.
Thank you very much. And now we are turning to Kevin, who will be our final closing statement of the evening.
Thank you very much to everyone for attending, for providing questions, and of course for voting on or before Saturday, May 16th. It has been the honor of my life to be a select board member in this community. I grew up in West Plymouth, and I live in North Plymouth now. I've lived there for the last 10 years, and I love Plymouth. It's part of who I am, is being a Plymouthian. But I'm concerned about our community's future. When I got on the board 3 years ago, I felt that the way that the board was doing business in the past wasn't working. People felt disconnected and ignored from their government and by their government. People were being left behind, and the town was not planning ahead. Our expenses were going up because we weren't investing in ourselves and in our future. Preventable problems were spiraling out of control. Since being elected, I have advocated for long-term planning and focusing on our community's future. I am particularly concerned about affordability in our community for all generations, but in particular, those that are 35 and under. Those that grew up here like I did, but can't afford to stay here, that have to leave the community that they love just as deeply as I do because of the decisions made in the past. I'm also very interested in smart and balanced economic development, preserving what makes Plymouth unique in terms of our environment and local character, but bringing in new jobs that are responsive to the needs of our community now and in the future. And I am focused on long-term planning. Every time I make a decision for this community, I think about not just what it means today, but what it will mean next year, in the next decade, and in the next generation. I think that's the kind of leadership we need in this community. People that care not just about now, but people who care about later just as much. And that's Kevin Canty. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. Would you all please help me congratulate the candidates and thank them? I'll add, they showed civility and respect for one another, and they met the highest standards of the League of Women Voters of the United States. Their predecessors in front of you this evening did the same, and we're so proud of the Plymouth League. I would like to quote the executive director of the State League, who recently moved to Plymouth. So she's a proud member of your community now. Her name is Celia Canavan. She's marvelous. And she recently said to me, this league, that is the Plymouth League, has long been a leader not only in the South Shore, but in the state as a whole, in reminding us of the hard work and tenacity it takes to engage voters in town politics. Their members' grit, commitment to the community, and dedication to the democratic process should inspire everyone to do what they can to engage in their civic duty. You've seen the candidates before you do this, and I believe each and every one of you here, we hope very much you've been edified by this evening and wish to thank you for being here and engaging in the community.
Oh, sorry. Hopefully, tonight's forum has been informative and will help you to exercise your right to vote in the upcoming general election on or before Saturday, May 16th. Our Plymouth Area League is proud to have hosted local candidate forums for many years with a fair and disciplined approach. Should you be inclined to get involved with the league, please visit our membership table at the back of the room. And I want you to know that it can be very rewarding and very fun. There's a lot of good people in the league. So we are grateful to all of our participants, both the school committee and the select board, as well as, most importantly, our moderator, Marlene O'Brien. Thank you to PAC TV for broadcasting this event. So please be sure to complete the survey that you likely found on your chair when you came in. We have actually adjusted our forms from feedback that we've gotten on these surveys. And one of them was to make sure that we allowed for audience-generated questions. And tonight, I think we did do that, more than league-generated questions. So I appreciate for your participation, and please let us know by submitting your survey before leaving. Thank you.